Good morning and welcome to the Lyon County Board of County Commissioners meeting for Thursday, March 6, 2025. Action will be taken on all items unless otherwise noted. No action will be taken on any item until it's properly agendized. To avoid meeting disruptions, please place cell phones and beepers in the silent mode or turn them off during the meeting. The board reserves the right to take items in a different order to accomplish business in the most efficient manner. Items may be combined for consideration and items may be pulled or removed from the agenda at any time. Restrictions on comments by the general public. Any such restrictions must be reasonable and may restrict the time, place, and manner of the comments, but may not restrict comments based upon viewpoint. Members of the Board of County Commissioners also serve as the Liquor Board, Central Lyon Vector Control District Board, Mason Valley Mosquito Abatement District Board, Walker River Weed Control District Board, Willow Creek General Improvement District Board, the Silver Springs General Improvement District Board, and during this meeting may convene as any of those boards as indicated on this or a separately posted agenda. This meeting may break between 11:30 and 1:30 for lunch. And roll call, we have Commissioner Jacobson, Commissioner Hendricks, Commissioner Casanelli, and Commissioner Hockaday in chambers. Commissioner Keller is out sick today. So first we will start with the invocation given by John Poundstone of Joy Church.
Heavenly Father, we come before you gratefully and humbly. We thank you for the privilege of praying in public. We find ourselves in a crazy season, culturally, politically, divisive, upheaval, turmoil. State legislature is meeting. The federal government is undergoing huge upheaval. And even today, we find ourselves in an agenda where our commission, our Board of Commissioners, is considering a lot of change and growth within our county. And so, Father, your scripture tells us clearly that we can appropriate and live from and decide from your righteousness, your peace, your joy. So I ask you for divine clarity, divine wisdom. In spite of all the turmoil around us, this also has marked the beginning of the highest holy season in all of the world's major religions, culminating in Resurrection Sunday, April 20th. And so may we find, appropriate, and live from your righteousness, your peace, your joy this morning and this entire season. In the masterful name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. His screen is out.
Oh, there it goes.
Public comment. No action will be taken on any item until it's properly agendized. It's anticipated that public participation will be held at this time, though it may be returned to at any time during the agenda. Citizens wishing to speak during public participation are asked to state their name for the record and will be limited to 3 minutes. The board will conduct public comment after discussion of each agenda item, but before the board takes any action. Is there any public comment at this time? Okay, seeing none. Item 5, for possible action, review and adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes or? Okay, I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Excuse me, before we vote,
Public
we've got to do, yeah.
Okay, is there any public comment on this before we vote? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item 6, presentation of awards and or recognition of accomplishment. For presentation only, present Deputy Trevor Bonds with Emeritus Service Medal.
Morning, Lyon County Sheriff Brad Pope for the record. Today, we honor Deputy Trevor Bonds for his actions on January 25th, 2025. January 25th, 2025, the Lyon County Sheriff's Office was advised by the Mono County Sheriff's Office in California that they were actively involved in a vehicle pursuit with a stabbing suspect. The stabbing occurred in Washoe County, Nevada, and the suspect fled to Mono County, California, where deputies located him near Bridgeport. The suspect fled and led the Mono County deputies on a high-speed chase towards Smith Valley. Due to the high speed and deteriorating road conditions from snow over Sweetwater Summit, the suspect pulled ahead of the pursuing deputies by several miles. As the suspect vehicle approached the Wellington cutoff, Lyon County Deputy Trevor Bonds spotted the vehicle in excess of 100 miles per hour. Knowing there was a special event taking place in Wellington, Deputy Bonds blocked the road, forcing the suspect to proceed north rather than towards Wellington and the special event. He then started to pursue the suspect, who was driving recklessly, entering the valley. As information continued to come in to our dispatch center, the Washoe County Sheriff's Office advised the victim of the stabbing was pronounced dead, and the suspect was now wanted for murder. Additionally, he was reported to be driving a stolen vehicle. Deputy Bonds pursued the suspect vehicle at high speeds alone, as additional Lyon County deputies were en route to assist. To complicate matters even further, it began to snow heavier in Smith Valley. The Douglas County Sheriff's Office and Nevada Highway Patrol troopers were notified of the incident as requested to respond to assist. As the pursuit continued, further information received advised that the suspect was possibly armed in addition to being wanted for murder. Deputy Bonds pursued the suspect on a dirt road and then into the driveway of a private residence before the suspect attempted to turn around to access the paved portion of the road. Deputy Bonds determined the suspect was a threat to the safety of the community and received permission to ram the vehicle to stop the pursuit and apprehend this dangerous criminal. As the suspect drove down the dirt road, Deputy Bonds intentionally struck the suspect vehicle with his patrol car. This maneuver was successful, and the suspect vehicle came to a stop. During the intentional collision, Deputy Bonds felt back and neck pain. However, he preserved and held the suspect at gunpoint until additional deputies arrived on scene to assist. The suspect was safely arrested, and Deputy Bonds was immediately evaluated and subsequently transported by ambulance to the hospital for further evaluation. In spite of all the risk, Deputy Bonds maintained his composure, acted with courage, and was able to end the pursuit and safely arrest a murder suspect. In response to Deputy Bonds' brave actions, he is nominated for the Lyon County Sheriff's Office Meritorious Service Award. This medal is awarded to individuals who demonstrate courage and perseverance, in the performance of his or her duties towards the protection of life or property, the prevention of a major crime, or the apprehension of an armed or dangerous criminal. That was submitted by Commander Ryan Powell. So today we're happy to present Deputy Trevor Bonds with his award. Thank you. That was good. Good.
I wanted to thank you for your fast action. This occurred in my district in Smith Valley and appreciate you thinking on your feet, knowing that there was an activity going on. So appreciate your action and thinking about the community and the community activity going on at the community hall in the middle of Wellington. But I think did a fantastic job. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, now on to commissioners and county managers report. We'll start with Commissioner Hockaday.
Okay, visited several nuisance properties in my district. And we're trying to do everything we can and within the county power to resolve some of those issues that we have in our neighborhoods. Also attended the State of the City address in Fernley. Learned quite a bit about what's going on up there and the businesses, new businesses that are opening up in Fernley and also the hundreds of them that are still going on and getting their business licenses. Also attended the Smith Valley Park Board, discussed a lot of the activities that are going on there as far as our rodeo arena and our new court that's being used quite a bit for pickleball and also for basketball and tennis. So that's being used a lot. Every time I drive by it, it's loaded during the nice weather. Wasn't very loaded the last day or two, raining and snowing. Also attended the Smith Valley Advisory Board last night, discussed some issues and found out about a couple of things that are going on up there that I was not aware of as far as thermal issues and companies coming out and checking BLM land in that area and basically in people's backyards. Didn't help out that input. Also, one final comment here about law enforcement. I do get a lot of calls from constituents about things going on in Smith Valley and Mason Valley. And one thing that I'd like to thank, especially Commander Powell, for his quick reaction to calls that I make about speeders and people driving fast in front of the schools, things such as that. I've had an outstanding response and I really do appreciate that. So thank you very much for getting patrol out there as soon as you possibly can. Thank you.
Commissioner Casanelli.
Thank you. Attended the groundbreaking ceremony for the new Mark IV Capital Victory Logistics Business District in Fernley. They're beginning to clear another 600 acres initially for pad ready sites there. And it was quite amazing to see that if you haven't been out there to Fernley to see what's going on there, it's quite impressive. Commissioner Jacobson did a good job addressing the crowd along with the governor and Congressman Amadei. So good job. And I attended the Mound House Advisory Board. The Dayton Conservation District had another meeting last week, and we're continuing to have issues with the design engineer on the project for the bank stabilization project. So we gave some direction to the staff to continue with that, but it may escalate. And I also attended the Dayton Advisory Board, and I just want to say thanks to our code enforcement officer. The Hart Street cleanup went really well and looks great. Thanks.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Apologize for missing the last meeting. But well, I'll get to that in a little bit, but visited Dayton Valley Golf Course, listened to them on how they can handle affluent. I want to thank Mr. Kepler, I see he's online, for sharing information. Got to tour TMCC at an open house. Really have amazing VOTEC campuses here in Northern Nevada, TMCC, WNC, Great Basin. Attended the FHS Boosters Dinner. I believe they raised a record $25,000, I believe is what I heard. So congratulations to them. Appreciate Mr. Commissioner Hockaday being at the mayor's State of the City. I missed that, as I've been a longtime cook at the STEM Festival there at Fernley High, and that was conflicting. We had 12 to 1,500 people in attendance. They ate over 1,500 hot dogs, or nitrate sickles, as I like to call them. Attended the Healthy Communities Family Night for trauma-informed communities. Believe Miss Madsen maybe put that on, but they brought in an excellent speaker. Met with city officials with the new community center. Appreciated their time. Attended the rural quarterly meeting with the Boys and Girls Club in Northern Nevada. Attended and spoke at the groundbreaking in Fernley. The Commissioner Casanelli had mentioned, I appreciated him being there. Declaring, I believe, 4,300 acres total. So Premier Victory Logistics Mark IV was well attended and really something else. Attended the debt management meeting. And I did miss the last meeting. Our Fernley boys played in the semifinals that Thursday, and we pulled off what I'd like to call the USA versus Russia hockey moment, where we beat a team we should have never probably beaten, and lost in the state finals game, but very proud of those guys. What a great team. Also, I'd like to congratulate the Smith Valley boys. I believe they won the state tournament. The Vaquero ladies lost in the semis at the state. And then I want to congratulate the Lyon County wrestlers as well. Fernley had 2 state champions. So very proud of those guys. We had our girls wrestling program is really taken off. We have some just absolutely wonderful senior leader ladies that are destined for greatness. Very competitive, and so I'm gonna be going through withdrawals. So maybe if Sheriff Pope can help me with some of my symptoms now that the winter sports are over, I'd appreciate it, big guy. And finally, as a volunteer for NDOW, we have a hunter safety class coming up March 18th and 19th. If you know of anyone in need of that, get those books done and get you in there at Fernley Intermediate School, where we're getting another crew ready for the big game draw. So with that, I appreciate you, Tammy, and that's all I have.
Thank you. I spent the last week at the National Association of Counties Legislative Conference in Washington, D.C., along with Commissioner Keller and our county manager, Andrew Haskin. And that was very productive. And we also met with all of our congressional delegates and our lobbyists. And last year that was very fruitful financially for the county, and we're hoping that will be the case again. And thank you, Andrew, for getting us home.
Andrew Haskin, Lyon County Manager. So I, as Commissioner Hendricks mentioned, attended the National Association of Counties Legislative Conference in Washington, D.C. I do want to thank our congressional delegates, Senator Rosen, Senator Cortez Masto, Congressman Amade and Congressman Horsford and their staff for taking the time to meet with us. And I think those meetings were really productive. So really appreciate them and all of their support. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot to update the board on.
Any questions or comments for him? Okay,
Thank you.
on to,
Actually,
okay, go
just
ahead.
want to thank Commissioner Hendricks, Commissioner Keller and Mr. Haskins for taking the time away from their families to go back and do that. That means a lot. So thank you.
Now on to elected officials reports. Do we have any elected officials? Seeing none, appointed official reports.
Morning, Josh Foley for the record. This is the time of year where I don't enjoy coming to see the commissioners. I enjoy seeing you individually. Just some of the news I have to bring at times is not enjoyable. I'm sure you may have seen in the news, and it's pretty much Nevada-wide as far as I can tell, where entities are having challenges with budgeting for next fiscal year. City of Reno, I think, is $24 million. As far as a budget deficit. City of Sparks, I think, was about $12 million. Those are the ones that you see in the headlines. That doesn't mean you don't have that across the state. I was talking to a counterpart in Ely, and they were telling me their budget situation as well. The schools are going to have challenges. What we're really seeing is our revenues are becoming fairly flat and maybe even starting to decline on some revenue sources as we go forward, like our consolidated tax. Lyon County, we're still seeing some increase in property tax revenue, but it's not as much as it has been for the past couple of years. And with those leveling out, our challenges become the increase with inflation, increase in salaries, increase in benefits that are out there. PERS is going up a significant amount from this year to next year. If we were status quo as far as salaries and benefits, next year compared to where we are this year, we would have almost zero budget deficit. But that's what actually puts us behind as we go forward. A couple of things that we're doing to address that proactively. I want to emphasize we don't have an issue in the current fiscal year. We're exactly where we anticipated we would be going through the year. And so that's not a problem. It's really when we get into next year that we see challenges, although we are starting to see consolidated tax start to drop off a little more sharply as we go through the year. So what that's telling me is we're probably in the middle of the beginning of, or slightly into a recession perhaps. And we're seeing negative returns on those consolidated taxes. Sales taxes are 90% of what we get through consolidated taxes as we go forward. So some of the things that we're doing, we've been working with Fernley Justice Court, and she is exploring the idea of working with the city of Fernley to do an MOU to combine the staffing between the municipal court and the justice court so that she takes all of the clerks, puts them together. They can work on either type of caseload. They can consolidate their court calendars and potentially maybe not save us a significant amount of money, but prevent us from having to hire additional staffing as we go and making it work much more smoothly. So please anticipate hearing things about that from the city of Fernley and from that court as we go forward. Hopefully that pans out because I think it's a proposal that could make it much smoother, much more cost efficient for both entities as we go forward. So we've got that. The other thing that we're doing proactively, again, we don't have an issue in this fiscal year, but starting next fiscal year, we're going to have a problem. But as positions become vacant currently, the county manager and myself and the department heads are discussing, should we fill this position? So right now we have 2 vacant positions that we're like, with the department heads discussion, we are keeping those vacant in case that we get into a situation where we have to reduce those positions so that we don't reduce positions that have people in them. We don't want to impact people as much as possible. So just to give you a dollar figure, we started out close to $4 million negative. next year's budget compared to this year's budget. We've trimmed that through the budget process so far, and we're continuing to work on that. So we're down close to $3 million that we have a budget challenge on at this point, from current year budget to next year's proposed budget. Which, again, in the grand scheme of things, that's between 5 and 6% of what our annual budget is, to give you an idea. So we'll be working through those. Still fuzzy figures. We're still waiting on revenue projections. We have some preliminary ones out there, but we'll nail down the final ones in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So then we'll have a little better grasp of where those actually are. I'm hopeful that we'll trim that a little bit more by maybe having a little more property tax revenue we can count on. But I'm working with a software vendor saying your projections don't quite make sense to me on the property taxes. I think we need to dig a little deeper into the calculations. So we're working on those. What's really caused us to do that each of the last couple of years are the voter approved overrides that happen in North Lyon Fire and Central Lyon Fire. Those make the calculation a little more complex, the way that they wrote those ballot questions. So we'll get it right. We'll get the anticipated figures and work on that. But I just want to give you a heads up. This is where we're at. No different than any local government out there. You may come across a couple. I had someone saying, why is the city of Fernley not reporting similar things? And I will tell you, they can count their blessings in this particular case that they don't have consolidated tax revenue going down in their budget. Because that's a significant piece of what is causing our challenges on the revenue side. So they're still seeing an increase in property tax. We're seeing a slight increase in property tax, but a potential flat or decrease in our sales tax revenue, which is a lot larger portion of our budget. That's all I have, unless you have questions.
Anybody have questions or comments for Josh?
Just to comment, Mr. Foley, I think Lyon County is very fortunate to have someone that is looking forward like that. We're probably not in the same boat as Sparks and Reno yet. So my hat's off to you and your staff.
Thank you. Next, we have advisory board reports. Do we have any advisory board reports? Don't see any, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and may be acted upon by the Board of County Commissioners with one action and without an extensive hearing. Any member of the board or any citizen may request that an item be taken from the consent agenda, discussed and acted upon separately during this meeting. Does anyone want to pull any items for discussion? Does anyone in the public want to pull an item for discussion? If not, I'll look for a motion.
Chairwoman Hendricks, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Is there any public comment at all on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Item 12, Human Services. For possible action, approve a contract between Lyon County and Hall Maintenance Company for $4,682 to provide handyman services to individuals within the Senior Services Case Management Program.
Dr. Shayla Holmes, Director, Lyon County Human Services. For the record, this is a standard contract allowing additional choices for our handyman services. The more contractors we have available to spend these funds, the better off our constituents needing them are.
Okay, any questions? Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Make a motion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve a contract between Lyon County and Hall Maintenance Company for $4,682 to provide handyman services to individuals within the Senior Services Case Management Program.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Item 13A, for possible action, approve conversion of Lyon County Sheriff's Office evidence items to county property. Sheriff Pope.
Good morning. Again, Lyon County Sheriff Brad Pope for the record. The property conversions are excuse me, firearms that were seized from drug dealers, criminals, and some of the firearms are from suicides that the family did not want back. So we convert these to county property, then we sell them to licensed FFLs, and we buy rifles for our deputies or handguns for our deputies, or any kind of equipment that our deputies could use. We asked for a cash offer. That goes into the general fund, but we've asked Mr. Foley to augment our budget once the sale goes through. But that's contingent on approving these to be converted to county property.
Commissioner Jacobson?
Thank you, gentlemen. So I'm all for selling any confiscated property possible and getting it back to our taxpayers for sure. So on a background check on these serial numbers, what will that look like for a potential buyer of these? Does it treat it, are these treated like a new purchase? Or is there a history on this firearm that may come back down the road as a flag for someone that may take it or buy it out of state and take it somewhere?
I think if you were to run it through a crime lab analysis, you might see that it was used in the commission of a crime, but a regular background check would show nothing.
Okay, so there's the general public, if they were gonna say, you know, I might, look at that, I could buy a Cricket 22 from my grandson. They wouldn't have to worry about any of that serial number check. Right on.
Now, these are all cleared through NCIC and everything before we transfer them.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions or comments? Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
I'll move to approve the conversion of Lyon County Sheriff Office evidence items to county property based on the listing submitted.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Item 14A for possible action. Approve a bankruptcy settlement agreement with Nevada Copper to settle the county claims for personal property taxes due. The original amount of the taxes due was $1,355,128.89, with a $123,192.29 penalty. The proposed settlement eliminates the penalty and reduces the principal amount by 5%.
Lisa Fogel, Deputy District Attorney. I've been before you several times on this particular issue. And we've been working on a settlement on our claim for personal property taxes for several months now. And I think we've come to what seems to me to be, and I hope you'll agree, a really good agreement. We filed our proof of claim, which established the prima facie evidence of the amount and validity of our claim. Now, the debtor on Nevada Copper could have objected to our claim. Had they objected to our claim, we would have been forced to go in and prove the dollar amount of our property taxes. And frankly, that would have truthfully been a nightmare because we'd be going out there looking at individual pieces of equipment. So I think for that reason, one of the reasons, this is a really good agreement for us. The other part that's good about it is that, one of the other parts that's good about it is that we get paid right away. The debtor has already set up a hearing for the approval of this agreement with the bankruptcy court on November 13th on March 13th next week. So we're going to get our money probably within about the next, I would say 20 days or so, because the order will be entered and then it'll have to be final. So the other good thing about it is that because we get paid right away, we don't have to worry about whether or not there's going to be enough money at the end of the day after the plan confirmation process and us standing there holding our proof of claim and not getting anything for it. So for all these reasons, and also the amount of the deduction really isn't that significant, because I think we were going to lose the penalty portion of it anyway. Under bankruptcy law, it would have gone away. So the 5% reduction to me makes it worthwhile. So since we don't have to prove the claim and we get it right away, for all those reasons, I ask that you would approve this agreement.
Okay, any commissioner comments or questions on this? Commissioner Jacobson?
Just for curiosity's sake, did our DA office represent South Lyon Fire, Lyon County School Districts, state of Nevada, Mason Valley Mosquito, City of Yerington and others in this?
Yes, we did, and that's what that second sheet of backup is to tell you about, that their reductions are actually pretty small. $1,000 for, I think, the mosquito district, 1,200 for another one,
Right.
but we do represent them. And so the money that we do get in will be divided, however, it's supposed to be divided. And Mr. Foley, I think, provided the spreadsheet for our backup, so.
Thank you.
I'm really happy about this agreement, frankly. I think this is a really good deal for us.
I wanted to thank you. I know you put in a whole lot of work on this. I did have one question actually for Josh. I wanted to know, has this been figured into our budget calculations already or?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Happy to be on the plus side of the
Yes.
ledger for a change.
Okay, is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve a bankruptcy settlement agreement with Nevada Copper to settle the personal property taxes owed by Nevada Copper for $1,170,339.77. The proposed requirement requires Nevada Copper to pay promptly, and the settlement eliminates the penalties and reduces the amount of personal property taxes due from Nevada Copper by 5%.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Okay, moving on to item 15, public hearing on planning items. Item 15A. For possible action to approve the request from CEA Dairy RNG Nevada LLC for a conditional use permit for expansion of a legally existing non-conforming use consisting of anaerobic digesters for methane production and to ensure compliance with Nevada Division of Environmental Protection regulations on land subject to rural residential 20-acre RR20 zoning located at 360 Campbell Lane in Mason Valley on an approximately 163-acre parcel APN 014-161-01 PLZ 2024-083. Mr. Carriola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Louis Carriola, Senior Planner, presenting. So as read into the record, subject parcels located in Mason Valley. These images show the relative location, the Highway 95A. It's a crow flies approximately 3.2 miles west with direct access provided by Farrell Lane, although Farrell Lane is not a fully paved roadway. The subject parcels approximately 163 acres. The typical access to the functioning dairy, however, is along Campbell Lane, a little further south on 95A. Campbell Lane is paved. So existing conditions, the subject parcel is one of four that are currently part of the Desert Hills Dairy. Desert Hills Dairy operates over 400 acres currently here in Mason Valley. And there are also already two large digester tanks on the site and in operation. I'll go into more details on the existing operation in future slides here. The floodplain designation here is one that's outside the 500-year floodplain. So no floodplain development permits would be required for future development. And as you might imagine, in this area of the county, there are no public utilities for water or sewer. Oh, sorry, as you know, sometimes the slides don't advance quickly. All right, so we have a few images here on the coming slide showing the existing digesters. These photos were provided by the applicant. They were included as attachments in the staff report. And the digesters are those large tanks, but we'll again see a bit more. Getting through some of the land use designations. This area of Mason Valley is in our rural character district. Those are typically areas without public utilities. And as is appropriate for the existing operation, the designation in the master plan is agriculture. You will notice that agriculture box there for the subject parcel, there's that finger to the east, and then that area to the west that is outside the map for the Mason Valley master plan designation. Notably, that little finger in the areas to the west and the south are on a separate map. There is an image in the staff report, and those designations are open space. In the areas that are just so we can completely, understand that the master plan maps on areas outside of our designated communities, we have a general northerly map, a general southerly. So again, the master plan designation for the site is agriculture and surrounded by open space. As we discuss every time when we talk about zoning, the applicable zoning here is rural residential 20-acre minimum. The conversion matrix that we use takes the expired zoning district that's on the site, converts it to RR20. So all the development standards for RR20 are applicable for the site. Here are some photos again provided by the applicant showing the tanks. So these are large structures. As we might remember from high school biology, anaerobic means lack of oxygen. And essentially these tanks take manure as stock, and then microorganisms break them down and then produce the biogas, predominantly methane. That methane is then put into trucks and then taken out to a site in Stagecoach, also operated by the same operation here, and then put into a tank and then made available for commercial sale. Okay, so according to the zoning, as previously mentioned, RR20 is applicable zoning. We're one to come forward with just a proposal for these digester tanks. We would see here fossil or alternative fuel generating facility, commercial, is listed in our land use tables and would not be allowed in the zoning district. That said, the dairy operation predated the adoption of our current development code, making the existing use legally existing and non-conforming. Further, those tanks were reviewed by Lyon County staff. That would be then the acting community development director and the county manager and the planning staff in 2020, when the dairy came forward and requested authorization to construct the 2 tanks that are there now. The planning department at the time made a determination that a conditional use permit was not necessary, as would be typical for any expansion of legally existing non-conforming use. That said, the reason was it was determined that because the 400+ acre dairy was already in operation, legally established, that this would be an accessory use to the legally established dairy, and therefore no entitlement was required. However, in 2023, planning staff was contacted by NDEP's supervisor of their chemical accident prevention program, and we were made aware of the fact that Nevada revised statutes require the local jurisdiction to issue a conditional approval for these methane production operations. Therefore, we're here now. So this is a little less than typical, let's say, in that we're looking to approve something retroactively that had already sort of been reviewed. And the reason I'm going through all this trouble here is I do want to point out that the dairy has done everything appropriately to try and request appropriate approvals. And they were told, and the attachments in the staff report do outline the correspondence, that they were able to proceed without the CUP before. However, again, working with NDP, here we are. So the proposed project description is probably a bit above my head as far as the technical details, but the general system again is taking the manure and converting it. There are 2 options proposed. The first is another tank. And the other option is what they're calling a lagoon. The lagoon would be covered. And I have some images here moving forward. Additionally, there would be the dewatering equipment, which essentially just takes, filters out water from, they call it a slurry, but it's just the manure. And the notable difference in the two options that are proposed is certainly the capacity. So we see here the tank has a volume of 1.8 million gallons. The lagoon, much larger at over 35 million gallons. So here are the locations for the two options that are proposed. I think they're fairly self-evident. And I do have a few slides here kind of showing the location relative to surrounding development or lack of development. I think more appropriately, I couldn't help but put this photo in here. On January 30th, I did have an opportunity to fly through Mason Valley, took this photo myself. And from this oblique angle, I think the important takeaway is there is no adjacent development to be impacted by this. And if we recall from the master plan designation, even if one were to come forward with a zone change, try and put some higher density zoning, commercial development nearby, the master plan does not support it. So I say that in support of staff's recommendation that the impacts are nominal to nil. Here are some of the images, again, provided by the applicant. I think the third tank looks pretty obvious what that would look like. The lagoon, they only have a location, but the important part, I think, here is that there would be a cover over the lagoon area were they to pursue that option. Findings for conditional use permits are found in chapter 15 to 3006. The staff report, of course, includes more details. However, some of the summaries written here, I think, kind of run through staff's analysis. We most notably are going through this process again to work with NDP and make sure we're in compliance with state statutes. The functioning dairy, again, over 400 acres already in place. And then again, notably, no real neighbors to affect by proposing this expansion. The county, of course, would still require building permits as it would for any construction. That would be, after this process. And the fire district, of course, would also have their own independent review as is typical. The planning commission recommendation. So on February 11th, 2025, the planning commission did hear a report from staff. There was no representation from the applicant. However, I do believe Virginia Weiss is online today. If you had questions for the applicant. The planning commission voted 6-0 to forward a recommendation of approval with one commissioner absent. Notably, the planning commission was not comfortable with the fact that there were two options, the lagoon and the tank. So they recommended approval of the tank option. Their rationale was that they'd like the applicant to come back if they were to pursue the lagoon so that the planning commission could further address potential impacts. I think, staff's recommendation has not really changed. However, the board, if they choose to move forward with the planning commission recommendation, would have to read that into the motion, because the motion as presented in the staff report, although there is a summary of the planning commission meeting in the staff report, the motion and the recommended conditions are the same as they were when they went to the planning commission. I think with that, I'm done with my presentation. Again, the applicant does have representation here if you have questions for them, and of course I'm available.
Does anyone have any questions for Louis? Okay. Is there any, I guess I do have a question.
Sure.
The difference between the tank and the lagoon, does one create more odor than the other? Or do they both create zero odor?
I wouldn't endeavor to say zero odor. I'm sure the transfer, but the lagoon would have the cover. And I think that's probably why, we did point out the lack of adjacent development and the fact that it's on the existing dairy. But yes, odor, of course, would be the primary concern when we're looking at mitigation measures. We just didn't find anything from a staff level as a way to mitigate that.
Okay,
on the dairy.
all right. Is there any public comment on this issue, on this item? Please step forward. If you could write your name and state your name for the record for us, please.
Phyllis Hiskett. I'm here for this issue. I live at the corner of Campbell and 95A. And I can't imagine anybody that works for the county or the sheriff's department that doesn't already know how serious that intersection is. Being offset, the whole thing, it's been an issue over the years, many, many times. The increase in truck traffic. We can sit on our front porch and listen to trucks screeching to that intersection to make turns. We have watched accidents happening. I don't know, I'm not a planner, a road planner, what the fix is, but there's always already been an increase in truck traffic there with them using their jake brakes and the screeching to stop and all the different things that they do. More truck traffic. I think we're just asking for fatalities at that intersection. Now, I'm not quite sure I understood all of this stuff that was printed out. If Farrell Lane is an option for the trucking for this particular situation, I think it should be forced to go that way. I just, like I said, there's nobody that lives around here that doesn't understand the dangers of that intersection and increased truck traffic. You could sit, like I said, if anybody wants to, they can sit on my front porch and watch the stuff happening right there with the danger with people trying to beat the trucks, or because the intersection is so offset or whatever it is, the trucks, a lot of them have to swing like into the ongoing traffic lane to make their right turns. And we've even watched where cars didn't understand that the truck was swinging around and boom, right into the sides of the trucks. So I really think that that specific issue needs to be addressed with this project. Farrell Lane looks like it's more of a straight shot, but then you still got an intersection there. I don't know what the conditions of that intersection are. I just know that ours has been seriously under scrutiny many times. So that is my objection and my request that that be addressed before anything is allowed to increase in traffic, truck traffic especially.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any other commissioner comments?
My comment would be, I can understand the increase in traffic and things. The one problem people don't understand is with public roads, we can't block the traffic. So as much as I'd like to say, you've got to use Farrell, it's one of those things where if they don't, we can't give them a ticket or anything. We've had so many of these issues in the county where people really want the roads not used. But as a public road maintained by the county, we can't block them from using it. So what we need to do then is thinking about improving the safety of those intersections, because I've tried it for, like Bybee and Pete Hendricks, and, we just have to work on those issues to resolve the problems in the area. So it's always a tough issue for us to decide on with our communities.
Do we have any idea how much traffic this is going to create? How many trips?
So, and, I'm sorry, NDOT as well as our roads director, were forwarded the application. The information and the submittal materials indicated that during construction, there'd be an increase in traffic. But that really, once up and running, is potentially one truck trip.
Okay,
So. And again, it is a functioning dairy already. This is a new use.
right. Thank you. Is there any additional public comment, or would the applicant like to say anything? I guess not. So I guess we are ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, based on the aforementioned findings and the conditions 1 through 8, I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the request from CEA Dairy RNG Nevada LLC for a conditional use permit for the expansion of a legally existing non-conforming use consisting of anaerobic digesters for methane production and to ensure compliance with Nevada Division of Environmental Protection Regulations on land subject to rural residential 20-acre RR20 zoning, APN 014-16101, PLZ 2024-083.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 15B for possible action to approve the request from Verizon Wireless Vertical Bridge for a conditional use permit for a new wireless communications facility and a 115-foot windmill tower on land subject to RR20 rural residential 20-acre minimum zoning located at 1 Scarsdale Drive in Mason Valley on an approximately 2,500 square foot portion of a 180-acre parcel, APN 014-241-12, PLZ 2024-080. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. Lisa Nash, Senior Planner. Thank you for introducing the project today. It's just me. It hates me. So, the location of this project is located at 1 Scarsdale Drive in Mason Valley, just southwest of the intersection of Miller and Alt 95, and you can see Miller Lane on the plan. Site access is going to be via an access easement from Scarsdale Drive. So, the overall master planning information, the parcel is within the Mason Valley Rural Character District. It has a master plan designation of agriculture, which you can see is the green areas surrounding. There is master plan low density residential to the west and to the east. I'm sorry, it's suburban residential to the east where it's slightly darker yellow. The property is abutting the city of Yerington boundary on the south side. Next slide. The zoning for the parcel and a lot of the surrounding area is the RR5 Fifth Rural Residential District, 20 acres under Title 10, which translates to the Title 15 district of RR20, which is the conditions that the property will be held to for development. Wireless communication facilities are an allowable use within this zoning district, subject to the conditional use permit, which is why we're before you today. So I have here the overall project site plan. There's a lot of details on it. It's a little confusing, but the height of the overall tower requested is 115 feet. This includes 95-foot wireless communication tower, which is allowed by code, and then a 20-foot tall windmill tower that's more decorative than moving at the top. The lease area itself measures 50 by 50 feet, a total of 2,500 square feet. And I wanted to bring out the distances. The proposed tower is located almost 250 feet from the southern property boundary. So the little dark square on the left-hand side is the facility itself. And then it's just under 900 feet from the eastern boundary of the property. These distances far exceed the required setbacks for the height of the tower, which does make that acceptable.
The reason there's a windmill on top of the tower is previously there was an application for a tower in 2020. And in that determination letter, the planning commission suggested it first, and then the board of commissioners upheld it, was to add the windmill at the top to camouflage it better than those tree looking ones that don't look anything like a tree you see in other areas. And the branches that stand out so clearly. So this method of minimizing the impact has been utilized in multiple locations now within Lyon County and surrounding areas, and it's becoming a more common practice, as a windmill is more something you expect to see in a rural area, especially with farms around, than one of those tree towers, which really stands out. Look at the next. So this slide goes into a little more detail, and it shows the ground level outdoor accessory equipment. You can see the tower in the center. It's enclosed with a 6-foot chain link perimeter fence with barbed wire, and that shows the full 2,500 square foot. The speckled in area on the right-hand side is where the ground equipment is going to be for this project. So this shows a visual. You can see the 6-foot fence at the bottom. They're going to have tan slats in them. And this shows the overall configuration. You can see the top end is where the antennas and the radio receivers will be, followed by the non-moving windmill, so there won't be noise and stuff from it at the top. So the next plan page shows photos of the existing site. The left hand shows where you're looking from, and the right is a view of the existing pictures. On the bottom 2 pictures, you can see tiny little looks. That's they photo added the what the tower would look like based on the one in southern Yerington. So here's a photo of the existing tower. This is taken from the road, looking at the tower, and you can see it's not painted garishly. It doesn't stand out, and most of the time your eyes kind of just go past it, expecting windmills in this area. So as usual, we have to look at the findings for a conditional use permit. Chapter 15.230.06 lists the findings, and I'm going to go into a few highlights. So the uses that are being requested here are consistent with the master plan contemplated use within agriculture in a rural character district. The applicant's going to be responsible for meeting all the conditions in this CUP, and we feel staff does that these conditions will protect the neighboring properties while improving wireless coverage. There is a gap right in that area along the highway and in that section where there's minimal and spotty coverage. So this is a pretty needed facility. The proposed tower location will not excessively impact neighborhoods. I can't say it won't, because they're going to see it. It's going to be there. You can't ignore that, but there won't be any noise. Once it's constructed, there won't be any additional traffic other than once a month going in to fire up a generator on site for about 10 or 15 minutes. And we do believe that that addition of the windmill will minimize the visual noise you would see. So the project complies with all of our required standards for wireless communication facilities, and those do conform to the master plan goals and policies related to wireless communication facilities, which were outlined in much more detail in my staff report. They are also going to be held to all fire building improvement codes, as well as national standards that are required for communication facilities. So this was heard on February 11th at the Planning Commission. The application was approved unanimously. The only comment that was brought up by commissioners was concern about what happens at the end. Does the lease with the property owners protect them when the 30-year lease is up? And there was a fair amount of discussion about that. Basically, we haven't had towers around for over 30 years yet, so we're not sure about the decommissioning, but it is in the lease and the property owners are here, and they felt very comfortable with it, with what they've signed, and that they were well protected. So with that, I'm available for questions, and the applicant should be online on Zoom and may have a brief statement if you're possibly, or he's available for questions. That's Chris up in the upper corner.
Does anyone have any questions for Lisa before we let the applicant speak?
I might have some after,
Okay.
Chris Hatch speaks, but
Okay,
I appreciate the presentation so far.
if Chris would like to say something, Chris, you're more than welcome to make a comment if you'd like.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank the Board of County Commissioners for Lyon County for hearing our presentation today. And Lisa, thank you so much for your wonderful representation and presentation today. You took the wind out of my sails with anything that I would need to add. Other than I would like to present on some of the questions that were
Sorry,
brought up.
can I
Sure.
Madam Chair, can we somehow
Yeah.
get the volume turned up?
Chris,
My
we
hearing
can-
is
can hardly hear you.
shot.
Let me check something here. Can you hear me better now?
No,
No.
This is the best I can do. Can I yell at you?
that's better.
There we go.
Okay. So I would like to thank the Board of County Commissioners for having our presentation before you today. And Lisa, thank you so much for your wonderful presentation as well. As I said, you've taken the wind out of my sails with anything that I would present in addition. You've covered most of the talking points that we have for this. This is an existing design with the windmill approved in the south side of Urington. So we figured rather than reinventing the wheel, use what was approved before and enjoyed by the community with the new presentation for this tower to the north, covering the area of North Urington, north of Luzier Road, along, was it alternate route 95. This is part of a mile-to-mile coverage objective for Verizon nationwide to make sure that county emergency services and the public have the ability to dial 911 and also receive high-speed internet services in communities throughout the United States. So this is part of an ongoing initiative to deploy wireless coverage nationwide. And we thank you so much for considering this in Lyon County. There were questions in the previous hearing about health and safety. We would like you to know that there is a document provided with the application package called an EMU report. This is a document reviewed by a third-party engineer to make sure that the facility now and in the future operates within the maximum permissible electromagnetic energy spectrum. And studies were done on the property that show that this is well below any reporting requirements, signage requirements, and will be maintained in all respects as a healthy portion of wireless development in Lyon County and the state of Nevada and operated under national standards. So there are no reported adverse effects from wireless sites, despite a lot of the information that's going around on the internet. And those studies are widely available and currently being updated by the FCC with absolutely no alarm bells being sounded at this time. So we look forward to the FCC's ongoing review of everything going on with wireless coverage and all specifications for the site and transmission of electromagnetic energies in the future will always operate under the conditions of the FCC's requirements. So that's a federal standard. We plan to stick by it. So if you have any additional questions about that, that report is in the package submitted before you. I'm open to any questions. And again, thank you so much for consideration of this project.
Any questions? Comments? Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I guess we'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion based on the aforementioned findings and the following conditions of approval. I move the Board of County Commissioners approves the request from Verizon Wireless Vertical Bridge for a conditional use permit for a new wireless communications facility and 115-foot windmill tower located on an approximately 2,500 square foot portion of a 180-acre parcel. The parcel is located at 1 Scarsdale Drive in Mason Valley in the RR5 Rural Residential 20-acre zoning district, APN 014-241-112 or 12, PLZ 2024-080.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. We're going to take a 5-minute break and we'll be back at 10:15. On to item 15C for possible action to approve the request from Dayton Partner Number 1 LLC, Atlas Development LLC, and LD Lots LLC for a planned unit development amendment to amend the Lakes at Dayton Valley PUD handbook. The area included within the PUD amendment is generally located north and south of Dayton Valley Road and north and east of Palmer Drive in Dayton for 5 parcels totaling approximately 566.87 acres. APNs 016-361-63, 65, 68, and 71, PLZ 2024-077.
Again, Lisa Nash, Senior Planner. So, please go to the next slide. So the applicant is requesting a planned unit development PUD amendment on 5 parcels. This would amend the existing The Lakes at Dayton Valley PUD handbook that was approved back in 2004. The biggest changes are the amendment will replace the hotel casino with less intense uses such as daycare facilities, storage facilities, neighborhood shops, as well as replacing the proposed golf course with walking trails, open areas that will accommodate better drainage. Now, this amendment only applies to the areas designated within the application, those 5 properties. It doesn't cover the properties owned by the county on the north side, which have recently came before you in February to be removed from the PUD through an abandonment process. And it doesn't apply to the property owned by Minor Ranch on the north side of Dayton Road. So, I know my description is pretty generic, but it does extend north and south, and east and west of Palmer Drive. This shows the exact location. The little knot apart is the portion that is the county property and Minor Ranch that is not being included in it. Access to the site would be from Dayton Valley Road, and the topography slopes generally to the north. That's this characteristic of this area. So under the master plan, the subject site is in the suburban character district in Dayton, and it's designated as suburban residential, as you can see on the plan. The subject parcels are all located within the Lakes at Dayton Valley PUD that exists now. So the old zoning on the parcels were NR1, neighborhood single family non-rural residential district, and tourist commercial district under Title 10 within the existing 2004 PUD. The land uses, this configuration shows what it was. This was the golf course is the green running through the middle there, and it had a hotel casino with casitas, small little cabana things. And it also allowed for a motor coach resort and a maximum of 2,567 dwelling units. That number did include the 618 that were allocated to Miravita, and Miravita is the dark yellow on the top there, which is not included in this PUD amendment. And as that property is county property now, there's no intent to develop those 618 at this time. I don't believe that'll change. We've already changed it to public facilities property, and hopefully something useful like a park or something could go in there in the future. So next slide. This is the proposed land use from the applicant. The changes shown on the plan above will allow for additional land uses that were not included in the original PUD. These zones will dictate the allowed land uses within each zone or village, as is shown on this plan. And they'll have their own development standards and requirements, as you could find in each section of the PUD amendment. The PUD amendment is not typically what we would see for an amendment. Normally, we would bring in the old one. It would be redlined. We'd have the changes. The old one was of a style that didn't address a lot of development standards. It was a little hard to use. It was difficult for staff to interpret. And so the applicant started with an amendment that is a fresh copy that included a lot of the old information, but updated it to current standards. So I want to go into the residential quantities that are allowed here. The 2004 PUD handbook shows an overall number of residential units of 2,395. However, the SUP, which was approved, let me go back. The PUD in 2004 was approved via a special use permit. We now have it as its own development entitlement that goes through its own process. But back in 2004, it was a special use permit. It didn't actually change the overall zoning. It just put this map as an overlay. So the conditions that went along with that SUP, which is all SUPs and CUPs have conditions of improvement, it included a maximum allowable of 2,700 dwelling units. So it set the number for the development, which was different than what the PUD. And the PUD was never corrected to update to those numbers that were shown in the conditional letter of approval, the determination letter from the Board of Commissioners. So with that, of the 2,700, 133 were designated for the motor coach, the RV park that is still part of the current proposal, and they were taken out of the 2,700. So that left us at the 2,567 units. With the removal, sorry, a lot of numbers, with the removal of the 618 from Miravita development, the villages are going to be capped at 1,657 units, of which 91 have already been built in Village 10. So that leaves a total of 1,566 new units to come in. That was a lot, and I'm happy to answer questions about it, but the tables and everything, I wanted to explain where those numbers came from so it made some sense. So on the next, the other change that is new to this is taking out the casino, we're replacing it with commercial property. One of the changes is we did not, they were not allowed to change any of the use volume. So if there was 97 acres for commercial, they could only go to 97 acres. They could not increase the commercial, they could not increase the other uses, acreages. And so all those numbers carried over the same. What did add was additional commercial units in place of the casino. And on the left is page 32 from the proposed handbook. That lists the uses. These are the only commercial uses that can be allowed in this area. And they will be subject to further permit reviews, depending on the complexity of the development and to ensure compliance with the PUD itself, which has development standards, and the Lyon County Development Code. So the picture on the right is thrown in to show this is the conceptual layout of the commercial area along Dayton Valley Road. You can see there's a lot of landscaping requirements. It meets adequate parking, and it shows what a potential development could look at. That can change, of course, depending on who comes in and who's interested, but it's a nice description of what we might see. So going on, the findings on a PUD, we don't have findings defined clearly in our code. So we go back to NRS 278A.410, and these are the three findings that must be met. So finding A, the amendment does not impact the existing CC&Rs or development standards for portions of the development already constructed. It only applies to the undeveloped portions on the lots we've discussed. It doesn't apply to any dwelling units that are constructed, units that are under construction, or units that have had submitted or recorded final maps prior to the date of recordation of this PUD. So the units that are already out there that have final maps in, this doesn't affect them at all. They will stay under the old PUD since they're already under construction. Then under B, the removal of the golf course and replacement with walking trails and additional open space is a positive improvement for the area. It is not going to adversely affect the enjoyment of the area, as well as replacement of the casino with needed commercial for the district in that area and retail services is a decrease in intensity of water and sewer usages over a casino, and it would constitute an overall improvement for the community and surrounding areas, in our opinion. It is not going to negatively impact. Plus, it will develop a piece of land that has been left open and vacant for quite a while, supporting the golf course, etc. So staff feels that these findings are met At the February Planning Commission meeting, the application was approved unanimously, with one absent commissioner, and they voted to forward a recommendation approval. As always, there is concerns about anything in this area with traffic, drainage, etc. However, this is a large planning level approval. This doesn't get into all of those details. Those will come next in future entitlements when they come forward for tentative subdivision maps or whatever route they choose to take. And at that point, we will get into the technical details of drainage, of traffic, everything like that will be considered. And that will give the public and the commission another chance, as well as staff, to condition and look upon, can they meet and make this an acceptable improvement to the area? So I just want to go real quick. I just included, this is a proposed phasing plan on the left. It's included in your packets and it's in the PUD amendment. And then these are some pictures of the trails and conceptual street layout in the 4,500 square foot area. So I am available for questions. The applicant is also here. They have their own presentation. I will be coming back for the next item with a separate but much briefer presentation. The applicant's going to make one that will cover both, but I'm here for questions at this time.
I do have one question. The storm drain, when does that go in before any other development happens out there?
The infrastructure is going to have to go in. The roads and the storm drain and all of that will have to come in before they can start developing.
And as far as specifying how often that's maintained, can that be done down the road in the tentative map process? Okay.
Yes, we'll have landscape maintenance agreements with them. They'll have to, if they're going to do HOA, CCNRs, et cetera, like that, we will have input on that, and we definitely will work out the maintenance agreements, et cetera, going forward. I believe they intend to maintain it themselves, not try to push something off where the county has to maintain it. So that is their plans at this time.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for her before we hear from the applicant's representative? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Karen Downs. I'm with Manhard Consulting and here representing this Legacy 49 project and the PUD amendment. Slide. This showed our project location. So if you can go to the next slide, I did want to provide a little bit of background on this PUD amendment, that it was adopted in 2004, but even prior to that, this whole area was included in a master plan community starting in 1989. And then also updated in 2003 and then renamed the Dayton Valley Country PUD, Dayton Valley Country Club PUD. And then finally, this portion, kind of this half of the PUD area, there was an additional PUD approved on that. That's this Lakes at Dayton Valley PUD. It included the area we're talking about with the motor coach resort, a destination casino, hotel and casino. The golf course, recreation amenities, and then the maximum of 2,700 dwelling units per that SUP approval that Lisa mentioned. Since that was adopted in 2004, there has been development on the site. There's about 281 units built in both North Point and Legato. Another 102 units are in the approval process. And then of course that other half, not part of this PUD, but the other half of that site at Lakes at Dayton Valley has also been developed. And then just as a note, that PUD, what a PUD is a comprehensive framework for the development of the whole area. It sets the development standards and then allows that development to occur within it. Okay. This is the approved land use plan and zoning that was in that 2004 handbook. As Lisa will go over in the zoning map amendment portion, the parcels were hard zoned NR1 4,500 square foot lots in the county, but generally the zoning should reflect or was intended to reflect the approved zoning in the handbook. And then this is the golf course community that was approved with the PUD, with the residential units, the destination hotel casino, and the additional golf course in the area. So the developer, through the last couple years of this process, has done some significant outreach with the community over the last couple of years. There's been meetings with the HOA boards and the community, proposing this regional solution for hydrology in the area and the need for additional drainage facilities. And then has made some agreements with those HOAs and that are included in the PUD handbook. I'm going to point out, and we'll address a little bit more later, that the agreements made are for the legacy 49 villages. They're villages 1 through 9, as we'll see, but it includes things like buffer areas and things to protect the adjacent community. Through this community outreach, I know they were part of your packet, but I just wanted to point out the letters of support. There were over 70 letters of support received. Obviously, not everybody can be here at the meeting today, but I just wanted to point that out for this community outreach. Some of the discussion between the existing approval and proposed approval are the current community needs and how the amendment addresses that. So one is, instead of the additional golf course proposed with the existing approval, that there is more of a need with the proposed layout for the open space with drainage, parks, and then amenities on site. And then instead of the destination hotel casino resort, there was more of a desire for neighborhood commercial to be that local residents could use. And then, of course, there's a general agreement for less development impact associated with this layout, less water, traffic, and sewer. So the goals coming before you with this amendment are one, with the zoning, to correct that zoning so that it accurately reflects the PUD handbook. That's what would trigger someone to look at the PUD handbook with zoning. 2 is to provide this clear and consistent development standards in the PUD handbook. Lisa had briefly touched on why we don't have just a red line version of the handbook coming before you. We started with that intent, is to just do some updates and provide red lines, but it was really, it's an inconsistent document based specifically on one project that did not have development standards in it. So we felt it was best to come forward with this handbook that hopefully is clear for everybody to look at and understand what's supposed to happen in the project. And then, of course, it modifies the development plan with the most significant items to replace the golf course with additional drainage facilities. And then it reconfigures the commercial and residential villages without increasing what was initially approved. So to accomplish that, there are 2 application requests before you today. One is a zoning map amendment from NR1 to PUD. And then the PUD amendment to amendment number 1 that will achieve this development plan. This shows the area that is proposed for a PUD amendment. Again, it does not include the Miravita portion owned by the county. And I guess that has changed a little bit about whether it's in the PUD project area. It has been, I think, until this past month, but it would include the rest of the PUD area for the zoning to be PUD. Okay, so the amendment proposed, I forgot it did this. I don't know how that happened, but okay. So again, the amendment for the land use plan before you, it's consistent with the existing approvals. It does refine those land uses, the commercial and residential land uses for the current community needs and reduce development impact. This development plan has a significant increase in the detention basin capacity and will address the flooding issues in the area all around. It does reconfigure the approved residential and commercial development areas, primarily with the neighborhood commercial uses and then just a different configuration of residential uses. There, it will incorporate less intense commercial uses, and it removes that approved destination casino hotel resort. It will, with, again, taking out the golf course, it will add additional landscape stormwater areas with the trail system and buffer between existing uses and the trail corridors and additional recreation opportunities. There is no change, there will be no changes to the existing development. And again, Mira Vita development is not a part of this. Okay, so next slide. We have this a comparison of the approved and proposed land use plan. You'll see it's a similar configuration of residential uses and where the commercial uses are intended. It has a variety of the residential villages range from 4,500 square feet to 8,000 square feet. It includes the commercial spaces, the open space. What there are additional, I was gonna say, what doesn't quite show on here is the trails and buffer system, but they are throughout that open space area. And then also there is a public facility, 10-acre area zone public facility that's intended for a school site. It's that blue area up in the corner. So we have this to compare the existing approved uses and proposed uses. We're keeping the same number of residential units at 2,567 maximum units. The acreage is a little bit more for residential uses, which leads to less density and larger lot sizes. We're at about similar commercial acreage used. Again, it's the different commercial configuration. And then the public facility and open space will have the different amenities with the landscape stormwater trail, landscape stormwater area, the trail system, buffers, a regional park, also neighborhood parks, and multi-use paths throughout. What I did want to show in this comparison is on the traffic. We did a traffic analysis from the 2004 approved configuration versus the 2025 proposed uses. And with that removal of the destination casino hotel resort and adding the neighborhood commercial that has more instead of traffic coming in, it has traffic kind of through that area, takes pass-by trips where local residents can use those commercial uses. It does reduce the traffic impacts by about 52%. See similar decrease of water and sewer. All right, next slide. Again, we're presenting here the justification and the benefits of this amendment as the original that 2004 PUD is approved. One to point out is the Lakes at Dayton Valley PUD with the half that's built. This is really a build out of that project, and it's half of the site that never got built and was intended for the entire site to be built and work together. There's also this development plan. It reduces development impacts and has been designed to meet current community needs. It has a better layout with the less intense commercial development. It provides a significant increase in the detention basin capacity, and it will address these regional flooding issues. The applicant has really tried to be a part of this regional solution on a variety of impacts. We did get, as I mentioned before, there were letters of support throughout working with the community. And I just included some text here. They want to help the golf course succeed. They're wonderful amenities and they love the commercial opportunities. Some other comments that came up is throughout this, the neighborhood meeting and planning commission meeting are that this is vacant land and it's become an attractive nuisance with dust and trash being dumped. This will add additional homeowners that will share in the cost of the golf course that is there existing. And again, that it just, they appreciate that it will build the other half of the community. So next steps, again, this PUD sets the framework for development. It doesn't include conditions like you would see with a tentative map. And so those are really the next steps of the application or the project process to submit future applications for these individual project approvals. There'll be tentative subdivision maps for the residential components. Those will have conditions of approval with, say, traffic improvements and those kind of conditions reviewed with staff. Some uses, like for commercial uses that are intended, are the administrative design review, which is a similar application process through staff, and then also additional permits for the permitted commercial uses. One clarification that has come up from the HOA, one HOA, it's the Legato HOA. In reading through, we wanted to make sure it was clear that the community planning section that outlines the agreements made by the applicant are specifically for the legacy 49 villages, villages 1 through 9, and does not include villages 10 and 11, which is their existing and part of the Legato HOA. So we included, we did that in 2 ways, one through text on the list of agreements. We added a sentence. You'll see in red line, it says conditions of approval for individual projects within the legacy 49 villages, villages 1 through 9. So of course, the applicant was making agreements for his project, but for her project, but it did not come through in text as clearly as it should have. Secondly, we added on the circulation map, the little, they're kind of blue, they look gray, but the little arrows that extend out from the existing or proposed backbone roads is just intended to show local access. So we added, there's that existing road through the Legato project in the southwest area. It's an existing road with the roundabout. There is intended to be access from that existing road. So we just clarified this map to show that. I have provided those pages and I believe you guys have them. But anyway, provided those pages to staff and we would request that clarification be included in this handbook. Okay, and next are the pictures of the amenities. The stormwater detention areas is up on the top left with biking trails, some other amenities throughout. The top right is a preliminary concept of a neighborhood park. Each village will have its own neighborhood park. Bottom left and bottom right are both examples of the neighborhood commercial uses, how that can be developed. And then the 2 homes are examples of the residential neighborhoods. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I'd just like to make a comment. Being that this development is in my district and having been a contractor on the original golf course development back in '89, I really feel that this development, had we not had the recession, this development will be built. Going through this process, I believe it kind of gives us a chance to backtrack and maybe do some things a little better, including the drainage. So I'm looking forward to seeing those improvements when the tentative map comes forward as far as traffic and ingress, egress, and the drainage and infrastructure needs. But I do believe that they've done a really good job on putting this proposal together. That's it.
Anyone else? Okay, anyone have any public comment on this item? Please write your name and state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Ron McCray. I'm a homeowner out in the Dayton Valley Golf Course Won't take much of your time at all. As they really said, a really good job of all the supporting surrounding communities. We all support the Legacy 49 project. That includes the golf course, Legato, Quail Ridge, the Ranchos Co-op that was put together to deal with the flooding that was in there. The golf course needs more golfers in close proximity. Everybody kind of knows that because when the course went public, it really needed more homes to support the course itself. Because when it was private, it was about $30,000 membership fee. Now it's in the hundreds. The DBCA needs the course to survive. The Legato HOA, which Legacy 49 is part of, only had about 200 of its 2,000 homes built. So if this isn't built, it will ultimately become a defunct HOA. Quail Ridge's foundation is deteriorating due to the same kind of drainage problems. And of course, the ranchos flood every single year. My home value is connected to the golf course, not a second bridge, about 70 pages of support you saw in the support in the documentation. Won't spare you from that. All the surrounding HOAs, all the homeowners and the golf course are all for this. So was Dayton Regional Advisory and Planning. A large casino just doesn't make sense, and nor does a second golf course in the space. The conversion of the course to the drainage will provide the open spaces we've needed. And if I do the math right, it's about $11 million in taxes to Lyon County every single year, and about $180,000 in monthly sewer connection fees since the sewers were built in anticipation of the homes that were going to come. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
My name is William Abbott, and I'm the president of the Dayton Valley Co-op. So I speak for the co-op. And first thing I'd like to do is thank the Legacy 49 people. We've been working with them for some time, and they have been very, very cooperative and eager to take care of the problems that were brought forward. However, there are several problems that remain that are, I don't know if they're really within their purview to be able to fix. It's something that needs to be addressed. First of all is the egress from the area. You have one way in and one way out, and you're talking about adding another 2,000 homes. That's insane. In my previous life, I was a registered nurse, and I was in charge of disaster planning for a hospital association in Southern California. I was a member of Area G Disaster Planning Council. We never would have approved anything like that. You have people trapped in that situation in a wildfire, they are going to die. So that's the first thing that needs to be addressed. The other thing is a lot of the things that are happening as far as the roadways, the new roadways, I'm sure will be fine. Dayton Valley, I believe, Dayton Valley Road and all the way out into Comstock was originally put up as a dirt road by the farmers that were growing alfalfa in that area. And I think it was more of a dike than anything else because their fields were flooding out every year. Well, they took Highway 50 chippings and did a chip and seal on top of that, and that road has never been engineered. So it's failing. It's failing right now today. We have trucks that are almost going off the edge there and tipping, and we had a school bus almost do that, and one of my associates witnessed it. So that road needs to be looked at if we're going to have that kind of stuff. Having the increase in usage is a concern for that surface. You know, we have to be careful on how we route traffic in there. We have 3 schools right there. If you have big semi trucks running down the road, it's real easy to have an accident with one of those and school children. So those are our major concerns. But again, I would like to thank the Legacy 49 people. They've done an outstanding job for the most part, but I cannot recommend approval of this until those crucial items are addressed and taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a couple online. Sandy Mass.
Candy Mass. I live in the Dayton Valley. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I live in the Dayton Valley Community Association and I love this location. I've lived here almost 10 years. I also have extended family that lives here and we all support the development. We have made this our home and we want this area to thrive. I support the Dayton Valley Partner #1 LLC, Atlas Development LLC, and LD Lots LLC PUD and zoning amendments as the original El Dorado Lakes development, including this area. And the Dayton Valley Community Association was always supposed to have 3,000 plus homes. I believe this was referenced earlier. The public golf course needs local homes to support itself. And the delays in the development surrounding us have caused significant difficulties for the Dayton Valley Golf Course. I'm also looking forward to the amenities that will be coming as a part of the development as we will become a more balanced overall community with the plans that meet current requirements versus what was considered 20 to 30 years ago as part of the John Lawrence development. We were always supposed to have the 2,500 to 30,000 to 3,000 homes directly accessible to the golf course. A public golf course cannot sustain itself without homes around with easy access. DVCA's home prices, my home price, my family's member home prices, were all tied to the Arnold Palmer designed golf course. We need the Legacy 49 project to continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Evans?
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am Mike Evans. I serve on the Board of Directors for the Legato Homeowners Association, which was previously spoke about. And I apologize, a lot of what I'm going to say has been already said by others, other HOAs and other neighboring communities. The Legato HOA is only currently about 280 households. However, the proposed development, Legacy 49, the marketing name for it, would be part of the Legato HOA, which the Legato HOA or the Legato community is only, as expressed before, a partially built master plan community. And it does not function well currently as a partially developed master plan community and will function, in our opinion, much better when the full master plan community becomes a reality. I also wanted to thank Legacy 49 and the applicant, which is the applicant of sorts, and express to the board how impressed we are with the amount of time and energy that the applicant spent with us, sharing what their proposed plans were, listening to our concerns, coming up with solutions to our concerns, and actually incorporating those solutions into this PUD amendment to memorialize them. They actually came to our community at least 3 or 4 times, actually at the golf course. They rented out a space in the clubhouse so our homeowners could actually attend and voice their opinions in the evening hours. So they made it very convenient for us to be in direct personal contact with them. They also held many private meetings with the Legato HOA, the DVCA, and I'm sure they did with other neighboring communities as well. They were also very responsive over the last 2 years to any phone calls, to any emails. It wasn't like they came and spoke to us and then all of a sudden disappeared. They seemed to always be available. In my personal experience, this type of community involvement is second to none. I've personally never seen anything like it. With that being said, it is Legato's Board of Directors' strong opinion that if this development becomes a reality, it will solve some of the issues our homeowners and community are experiencing, excuse me, due to the master plan community only being partially built. It is our belief that the completion of the master plan community will improve the economies of scale for our homeowners related to HOA-related costs. The community functionality will improve. We'll have better traffic circulation. will have added and enhanced amenities. And it is a gated community. Legato is currently a gated community and will continue to be a gated community. But
Sir?
some of the-
Your 3 minutes are up, but thank you for your comment.
Yep, thank you very much. Sorry for running long.
That's okay. Jim Kepler?
Did I do it right? No.
Jim Kepler? We can't hear you, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can? Okay, good. So my name is Jim Kepler. I'm the director of golf and actually one of the the owner of the golf course. I opened this golf course back in the early 90s. We opened in May of 91. And I was here for quite some time and I left and I came back. We put together a group of people a few years ago to buy the golf course. The golf course is probably one of the most spectacular golf courses built in the country, not just in a little county. It's ranked as Arnold Palmer's top 5 golf courses ever built at one time. Now it's not quite as high because we have lost tons of play because there used to be like 5 golf courses in a region. Now there's 50 within an hour and a half drive. The problem we have out here, we don't have enough homes. So it was planned to have the whole development done years ago. And we came back because I lived out here. I put 6 kids through school here. I'm part of the community. And every step of the way, Project 49 has come and talked to us about everything that they want to do. And we're on the same page in a lot of areas. We also help the county, which is going to be helpful for both sides with the Fluent plan. But I think this project, between the golf course, we have an event center here. I'm on the room tax board, and there's not a lot of rooms in Lyon County. So if they're going to build a small hotel eventually, I understand maybe or maybe not. But we need more homes out here, and I think they've crossed every T and dotted every I. So I and the golf course ownership in full support of this project going forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Okay. Any other commissioner comments? I do have a question for Lisa. I just want to kind of ask you a question to clarify things for the public. This is already an approved project, correct?
Yes.
So what we're approving today is nothing new. We're amending it to make it less impactful to the community.
Yes.
Okay.
If this is not approved today, the PUD that is in existence will
Okay.
continue to be in existence.
Just wanted to clarify that. So if there's no more public comment, I'll look
May I
for,
make-
yeah,
May I-
absolutely.
I'm aware the 1 sentence revision and the plan revision are on pages 7 and I believe 8, yes? Or 46, 7 and 46 within the manual. Staff saw them late last night after the Dayton cab, which I was at, and staff agrees with those 2 very small amendments.
Thank you.
Did you read those into the record?
I can.
That might help a
Yes,
motion
okay.
for sure.
So the first one is on page 7 of the PUD, proposed PUD handbook. And the first paragraph on page 7 in the left-hand column will add to the last, well, it's 1 sentence. I'm going to read the whole thing. Community planning, following significant communication and coordination with adjacent property owners and homeowners associations, the following agreements have been made and will be further stipulated in conditions of approval for individual projects within the Legacy 49 villages, parentheses, villages 1 through 9, and parentheses, as applicable. And then the second is on page 46, where they added additional blue arrows to show the traffic circulation proposed. And they changed the legend at the bottom where pink said existing street to black is existing street to clean up an error they found in the plans. Those would be the 2 amendments.
Thank you. Yeah, we're ready for a motion. Anyone want to make that?
Well, I'd say it based on the aforementioned considerations and the amendments as listed into the record. I move that the Board of County Commissioners approves the request by Dayton Partner Number One LLC, Atlas Development LLC, and LD Lots LLC for plan unit development amendment to amend the existing Lakes at Dayton Valley PUD handbook. The area included within the PUD amendment is generally located north and south of Dayton Valley Road and north and east of Palmer Drive in Dayton for 5 parcels totaling approximately 566.87 acres. APNs 016-361-63-65-66 -68 and 71, PLZ 2024-077.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, on to 15D for possible action to approve the request from Dayton Partner Number One LLC, Atlas Development LLC, and LD Lots LLC for a zoning map amendment to amend the zoning map designations from the Title 10 districts of NR1 Single Family Non-Rural Residential District and TC Tourist Commercial District to the Title 15 District of PUD Planned Unit Development generally located north and south of Dayton Valley Road and north of and east of Palmer Drive in Dayton for 5 parcels totaling approximately 566.87 acres. APN 016-361-63, 65, 66, 68, and 71. PLZ 2024-040.
Good morning again, Lisa Nash, Senior Planner. So we're here for the second part of this application today. Go to the next slide. I've made this very abbreviated, so I didn't repeat all the same slides you just saw. But the applicant's requesting a zone map amendment on the 5 parcels. It would change us from the Title 10 districts of NR1 and TC to the Title 15 district of PUD. As the applicant explained in their previous presentation, this will make it clean up our GIS mapping. It will also trigger staff and anybody looking at this to go to the PUD. It'll be very clear that the PUD controls what the zoning is there, and it will have all the development standards, so it's more clear to anybody looking at these properties in the future. These zone map amendment also only applies to the areas designated within the application. It does not change the county or minor ranches properties. So we are looking at the same properties just discussed in the PUD amendment, and go to the next plan. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on the master plan, as that is very applicable to making a zone change. The table on the right here shows that a PUD is an acceptable Title 15 zoning within the suburban residential zone. So this does comply with master plan. It's not asking for anything that's contrary to that, and it does clean up the zoning for this area. So this is the same plan you saw before with the zoning from the 2000 PUD. And then the next slide is the proposed zoning. I did circle the individual lots so you could see clearly where the 5 lots that are being changed to PUD are. The development on these properties and including this would mean that any development on these properties, including the underlying zoning, have to meet the requirements of the PUD and standards outlined in the PUD and Lyon County Code. The change would not refer to a specific PUD, but would rather be tied to the PUD in effect at the time of development, which you just approved the amendments to. I do want to add something. This also makes it clear in that PUD amendment that I probably should have mentioned last time. We did add statements to all of the individual development requirements that stated for parking, landscaping, etc. They would follow our code reference or the code that's in effect at the time when they came forward with the project. So that if this does for some reason, say we do head into a recession, or we are heading, as our comptroller mentioned, this would tie to what the current zoning is. We shouldn't have to go back and revise it repeatedly if there is a delay. But I know the applicant is excited to get going, but I do like to plan for the future here. So on the next, we have this same we have similar findings that we always address in terms of a zone amendment, chapter 15, 2.220.05. And I added some brief statements to it. It is consistent, we do believe. PUD is an allowed zoning use within the master plan of suburban residential, and it's consistent with the master plan policies and goals. It won't be inconsistent with the adequate public facilities policies. The parcels are within the water and sewer boundaries of the Lyon County Utility District. I did add the note that they are dependent, of course, upon the Lyon County Utility District to be able to have the capacity to serve the systems, as all developments are at this time. And the proposed zone map amendment is consistent with suburban residential, and it's compatible with the surrounding uses. So at the February Planning Commission, the application was approved unanimously, and they forwarded a recommendation of approval based upon the findings. And I'm here for questions, as is the applicant. They won't have a presentation this time, though.
They won't? Okay.
They covered it pretty much.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Lisa? Okay, is there any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, I guess we're ready for a motion on this one.
Based on the findings A through C, I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the request by Dayton Partner Number 1 LLC, Atlas Development LLC, and LD Lots LLC for a zoning map amendment to amend the zoning map designation from Title 10 District of NR1, Single Family Non-Rural Residential, to TC Tourist Commercial District, to the Title 15 District of PUD Planned Unit Development, generally located north and south of Dayton Valley Road and north and east of Palmer Drive in Dayton, for 5 parcels totaling approximately 566.87 acres. APNs 016-361-63-65-66-68 and -71, PLZ 2024-040.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. On to 15E. For possible action to approve the request from Track Capital Management LP for a master plan amendment to change the character district from rural to suburban on approximately 190 acres of an 800-acre parcel located west of US Highway 95A and north of US Highway 50 in Silver Springs, APN 015-091-08, PLZ 2024-051.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Louis Carrillo, Senior Planner presenting. Similar to what Ms. Nash just did with multiple presentations. This is the first of 3 presentations on the proposed Silver Springs Technology Park specific plan. The applicant's representative is here, has his own presentation. The order of these presentations is purposeful. So while you'll see many graphics that look similar, they will sort of change by the time we get to the 3rd item. So first, we're going through this character district request, then we'll have a zoning request, and then the specific plan. The specific plan, the 3rd item we'll hear today, will be the most detailed and describe most of the project. However, I did want you to be aware that the applicant's single presentation, which you'll likely hear after this item, will probably expand on the larger project and not just address this requested character change. So that said, I will start with identifying the project area. Notably, there are 6 parcels in the total project area for the Silver Springs Technology Park. However, the request for this character change is only to a portion of the largest parcel. So we see the 6 parcel outlines here located in Silver Springs, northwest of the traffic circle, the intersection of Highway 95A and Highway 50. The largest parcel being obvious, it's 800 acres there, and the proposed change is only to 190 acres of that. It would be the 190 acres that are on the south side and adjacent to the other parcels. These images are simply taken from the county assessor's map, showing the dimensions, confirming the 800-acre size of the subject parcel. So the applicable zoning for this parcel, as well as the parcels to the south, is our rural residential 20-acre minimum. We'll note to the south of the entire project area is land owned now by Microsoft. A couple of years ago, you would have, or the PC and the board heard requests for changes here, and they requested a zone change to service industrial, which is the same as what we'll see in the next presentation here. That said, we can see that that pink color does surround the majority of the site. Again, Microsoft to the south, and then to the southeast, there's a block of land that's subject to rural residential 2-acre minimum zoning. It is notable that there's not really an established community here. I mean, there are some intermittent houses, of course, but there's not a full community of residential development. So getting into the master plan and character districts, just for the public's understanding, we do have something a little peculiar in our master plan. Typically, jurisdictions have zoning and master plans. We also have character districts. Character districts here, in simplest sense, between rural, suburban, and historic. Rural being areas similar to the dairy we saw in the last presentation I gave, without public utilities. Suburban districts typically have public utilities or the availability of public utilities, meaning they might be adjacent to existing service areas. And then historic districts would be areas like historic Dayton. So we see the two colors on the left here, the delineation of the rural and suburban district as it runs through the proposed project area. That 800-acre parcel on the north side you see is all rural. And and suburban, that orange color to the south. So over on the right side, we see the existing master plan designation. The master plan designation for all of this area is rural residential. So again, we're going to see some of these slides repeatedly, but relative to the other items here, I just wanted to throw up quickly on the right, we see the outline of the proposed specific plan, which meets and matches and I think we're both doing, I'm not sure. Thanks. Which matches the request here to change a 190 portion of that 800-acre parcel from rural character district to suburban character district. So that is the request. The findings for a character district change. Character districts are again part of the master plan, so they're found in chapter 15 to 1003. Staff's findings do touch on this, and you'll see this image in the staff report. But one of the qualities that we recognized in making the findings and recommending the change was that the 2020 master plan introduced what are called on the maps the BLM above ground utility corridors. These areas are designed so that they are able to connect to Nevada Energy's larger Greenlink project and some of the other larger solar and other energy generating projects on public lands adjacent to Lyon County. Within these corridors, high voltage power lines do not require conditional use permits, whereas they would require them outside of these corridors. So if we note the location of this corridor on the right, sort of zoomed in, you can see the Silver Springs Airport. That orange box is the estimated area for the Silver Springs Technology Park. And then if you recall, right south of there is Microsoft, the Microsoft land. So it's no coincidence that Microsoft and this project have both identified this region as appropriate for their proposed projects. More highlights of the findings. The suburban character district is necessary for us to go through the next requests. So that's sort of the order of operations here. Title 15's the master plan's goals and policies quoted by the applicant were were appropriately quoted and staff was in agreement that projects like this, the larger project is a data center, would support a diverse economic base, being more thoughtful about business and industry locations. Of course, the above ground utility corridor being central to that point. And then no direct impacts had been identified, particularly for a character change. So at this point, the character change would set the stage for some of the future entitlements that be required to implement the entire project. The Planning Commission did hear this item on November 12th, 2024. All of the items that we'll hear today related to this project were heard at that meeting. There were some delays delays in coming forward to the board because since that time, the applicant and staff have been working on a proposed development agreement, a larger document with much more precise details about how development should proceed, how it can proceed. And we've been working with the district attorney and their attorneys to get that document. We've had, a couple delays here. So I think originally the intent was to hear all the items together. It looks in the coming months, you'll be seeing the Planning Commission and then the board will be seeing that development agreement. So that's the reason we have kind of a lag here. It is notable that the Planning Commission did recommend approval unanimously 7-0 for this character district change. With that, I am available for questions. And again, the applicant is here. I'm not sure if you want to do the presentation now or during another item.
Any questions for Louis, or would we like to hear the presentation?
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for having me. I want to start with a thank you to staff. They've been incredible to work with. I was looking back at email. We met originally in May of last year, so it's been almost a year of work with staff to get to this point. I'm going to present kind of just a general framework information on the project. I know Louis.
Chairman, could he state his name for the record?
Oh, yeah. Mitch Nelson, Director of Entitlements. Thank you, Commissioner. And I'm with Tract Capital, 3200 South Cherry Creek Drive, Denver, Colorado. Sorry, I know this is going to get into a lot of details, so I'm going to kind of do a high level presentation and I'll be available to answer questions. Want to start with the project team and the folks that have been working with Lewis and staff. That's me on the left, and then Dan Beck is our Director of Development, who's a civil engineer by trade, has had a hand in a lot of the water and sewer diligence that we performed on the site. And then our consultant team is listed below. Manhart Consulting is with us here today. He's helped with some of the planning and the specific plan documentation, the headway doing transportation and west next to us. So next slide, please. A little bit about Tract. So we're headquartered in Denver, Colorado. We're a national data center development company that was started a few years back. Our ownership had built and or constructed data centers across the country and internationally as well. We saw an issue with the way data center development was taking place that was reactive rather than proactive. And so along with the staff that was just presented, we began to target areas that made sense from a land use planning standpoint and infrastructure standpoint. And so our intent when we go into a market is to start with meetings to find out where the opportunities are with the local jurisdiction like Lyon County, and then work as partners through the process to develop appropriate zoning approvals. And next slide. As we're doing those acquisition and diligence items, we're also working with the energy folks, so Nevada Energy in this case, to develop a plan, go through feasibility analysis to make sure that this project could feasibly be built on this site and with certain infrastructure improvements. Ultimately, at the end of all that, when we've got appropriate entitlements and utility diligence complete, we'll close on the property, and we do, depending on the scope, move into construction development. The timing is always dependent on when we have the delivery of the electrons to the site, which obviously we invest a lot of time and money into that ahead of when we potentially put roads and sewer because they have a shorter wait time. So that's kind of our business model as a whole. I just want to reiterate the focus on appropriately locating these and then the partnership that takes, these take 5-10 years sometimes. And so we try and really build a partnership with the local community. Next slide. I jumped the gun, but that's kind of what I was getting at right there. I think it's a long-term collaboration. That's kind of how we phrase it in the corporate jargon. Next slide. Just a little bit about where we are. We're in 10 different markets across the U.S. We've gotten successful entitlements in each of those markets, and we've actually broken ground on a few projects nearby in Story County as well as in Virginia. So we've gotten to that stage of horizontal development, which we think is one of the critical ones that bring the real opportunity to site the end users. A real quick note there. We have the capability to build vertically with a sister company, but we typically would sell to a hyperscaler such as a Microsoft or a Meta. And so our intent is to horizontally develop them, prepare the site, and then either build ourselves or sell to an external party. I won't get into too much here. I think you guys are familiar with the site and the proposed acreages that Louis presented. We do have an approved Nevada Department of Transportation traffic impact analysis. And then obviously in yellow, as you can see, as was presented with the BLM corridor, is the transmission lines that we located when we were looking at the site for diligence. Next slide, please. I wanted to touch quickly on the process. So I mentioned we started this in May. We did go through an introductory meeting with Silver Springs Citizen Advisory Board, I believe it was in June or July, and then we did receive approval from that board in August. And then we already mentioned the Planning Commission approval. We have addressed staff comments throughout. We feel we've got a really good final document. I did want to touch on 3 of the items that have come up from the public process. One was the architecture. And so as a response to that, we've included requirements for building color as well as architectural variation within the specific plan document that's in front of you today. We think that'll help alleviate some of the current concerns with the visibility of the project. The second item is water. Obviously, these can be heavily water intensive facilities. However, we rely upon the local climate and the local utility status to determine our water use and the method which we'll use to cool the machines. We are looking at most likely a dry or a air-cooled campus here. So the use is 10 to 20 acre feet is what we're projecting right now, which is far below what the current zoning would have demanded. We've gone and purchased rights within the Churchill Basin, which we believe we're diligencing, but we believe will be adequate to serve that and have some buffer. So we acknowledge water is a very critical component of the climate out here. We've done our due diligence and our homework, and we've purchased rights to address that. And we, obviously we'll stay engaged as that progresses. And then the last item was Nevada Energy. Obviously there's concern about the power demand. We have a feasibility analysis that was complete by Nevada Energy. And I think the summary of that is there's 15 contingent facilities that need to be built and helped fund by tract that will reinforce the grid in this area to allow for this. And so our approach is always that we have to be a participant in the solutions. We believe that with those contingent facilities being complete and our property being developed, that will actually help reinforce the grid. And so we are confident with the results from our study that we can move forward on this project. Next slide. I think we can come back to these if needed, but I will skip through the next couple slides because these are kind of a reiteration of what Louis had presented. Next slide. Next one. Thank you. So I wanted to highlight a couple items within the specific plan that I've kind of already touched on. Obviously, the first one was the architectural requirements. We believe that's a benefit in addition above code. We've also gone through and met and exceeded the code on setbacks and buffers. We've allowed for the uses that are in the service industrial zoning, and then data centers as the only addition to that. Again, we intend to develop it as a data center site, depending on the power. We do acknowledge that there's a chance that this could be one of those uses in service industrial. That would obviously trigger some further approvals in the future. We'd have to change water, sewer, our approach in general. So, but that is the zoning and allowed uses we're asking for. Otherwise, the request is all code aligned. We didn't ask for any variances from the code that exists today. And so we think that's a benefit to the project. And then Louis had alluded to this as a reinforcement of what's in a specific plan. We wanted to put together a development agreement that outlined our obligations and our processes. And so that's what we would bring back here in the next month. It's not going to deviate from what's in the specific plan. It'll just reinforce what's there and allow for some clarity on the BLM corridor and the substation locations and allow for us to understand our findings that would be necessary to get approvals there, but a potentially different process. So that'll be back in front of you. Next slide. I go fairly fast. I'm probably better at answering questions and I'll do that slower. So we're really excited to be here. These have economic benefits. I didn't want to give that sales pitch. I think you guys are aware of what's going on in Stewart County and the tax dollars that can come from these. But what's most important to us is that we're good partners and that we have a good plan. This is the first step in a series of permits that we believe will lay out a good plan of development. So with that, I can answer questions.
Questions? Okay. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, I guess we are ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion based on findings A through E that the Lyon County Board of Commissioners approve the request from Tract Capital Management LP for a master plan amendment to change the character district from rural to suburban on approximately 190 acres of an 800-acre parcel in Silver Springs, APN 015-091-08, PLZ 2024-051.
Second.
Go ahead.
We have a motion and 2 seconds. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And on to 15F, for possible action to approve the request from Track Capital Management LP for a zoning map amendment from 5th Rural Residential District 20-acre minimum to service industrial on approximately 460 acres of 6 parcels that total approximately 1,070 acres located west of US Highway 95A and north of US Highway 50 in Silver Springs, APN 015-091-08, 015-111-01, 02, 04, 05, and 06. PLZ 2024-052.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, Louis Carriola. Of course, this project area looks familiar. Same 6 subject parcels. Whoa. So running through the master plan and character district, the last item approved by the board did change the character district to suburban for the 5 southern parcels in this request and 190 acres of the larger 800-acre parcel. So you see that suburban character district on the left, and the master plan designation remains rural residential. So, I think we can probably skip this slide because we'll get into it. The existing zoning, as covered even in the last presentation, applicable to all 6 sites, is still rural residential 20-acre minimum. And the proposed zone change here is for a total of 460 acres to service industrial. That zoning would match the Microsoft zoning to the south. Of course, this is in preparation for the technology park's intended project of a data center. Findings for zoning map amendment are found in chapter 15 to 2005. Again, we do see the above ground utility corridor here, fitting into staff's analysis and findings, where we were able to make a recommendation of approval for the zone change, recognizing that this zoning change is required for the proposed uses within the data center to match the specific plans, development plans. The above ground corridor again being quoted, existing utility systems being adjacent, as well as potential for connection into utility service areas for water and sewer. I will touch on that in a bit more detail in the next presentation. No real adverse impacts have been identified, although residential development to the southeast on those 2-acre parcels, while sparse, they will be, having to recognize that there is a potential for this larger project here. It is notable that Microsoft again has almost 300 acres just to the south of there. And if we note that public utility corridor, that above ground utility corridor does run through a number of those parcels. So in the 2020 master plan, when that plan was adopted, those property owners should have been aware of the fact that the utility corridor was in place. As previously stated in the last item on November 12th, the planning commission did hear this item and recommend approval of the requested zone change. The recommended motions on the screen are available for question.
Any questions for Lewis? Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, based on the aforementioned findings, A through E, I move that Lyon County Board of Commissioners approve the request from Track Capital Management LP for a zone map amendment from RR5, fifth rural residential, district 20-acre minimum to SI service industrial on approximately 460 acres of 6 parcels that total approximately 1,070 acres. APN 015-091-08, 015-111-01, -02-04-05 and -06, PLZ 2024-052.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. On to 15G for possible action to approve the request from Track Capital Management LP for a master plan amendment from rural residential to specific plan on approximately 460 acres of 6 parcels that total approximately 1,070 acres located west of US Highway 95A and north of US Highway 50 in Silver Springs, APN 015-091-08, 015-111-01, 02, 04, 05, and 06, PLZ 2024-066.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Louis Carriola. Again, we see the 6 subject parcels in Silver Springs, northwest of the intersection of Highway 95A, and Highway 50. The total area for the 6 parcels is 1,070 acres. The request for the specific plan is only 460 acres. Again, as we've seen these slides, the character district for the entire area proposed for the specific plan is suburban. And the existing master plan designation is still rural residential. Unlike the other presentations, I'm going to run through some of the photos provided by the applicant. They are included in their entirety within the staff reports attachments. The picture on the right there is looking west. We can see on the site, while it's undeveloped, there are those power lines running through the site, as well as some maintenance roads. I think we can call them roads. Okay. So again, we can call this a road, but of course, future development on the owner's expense would have to install any necessary infrastructure. The zoning, as approved in the last item for the entire area, is service industrial, matching the Microsoft zoning to the south. The request details here are the same 460 acres for a specific plan, the Silver Springs Technology Park. I'm going to use a term that the county manager coined as far as I heard it, which is specific plans are sort of a mini master plan. So this is a master plan change. It per Title 15 allows for more precise implementation of the master plan. Typically, a project like this, which really is a single use, a data center use is a single use, wouldn't really require a master plan in and of itself. Title 15 requires that one submit a specific plan for any master plan change over 160 acres. So that's the reason we're here. Just a quick refresher on what specific plans are, because again, at a master plan level, they do provide a mix of land uses applicable with the appropriate character district. They assist the county with future planning of infrastructure and services because the specific plan needs to outline the timeline and sort of the process intended for full project implementation. Excuse me, but they do not change the regulatory zoning. They don't annex properties into utility service areas. And they do not directly in and of themselves approve conditional use permits, administrative design review, not applicable here, but tentative maps. That is not included in the approval of a specific plan. In this case, as previously mentioned, the applicant is working with staff and the district attorney on approval of an agreeable development agreement for this project. So the development agreement will be a much more detailed document, kind of expanding on what is touched upon in the specific plan. We saw these images in Mitch's presentation. Of course, they're in the staff report. The specific plan area being 460 acres. It's again notable that 610 acres to the north, if you recall that 800-acre parcel, there is no proposed change for that area. The data center project would include not just data center structures, but then accessory uses, essentially essential components of a data center project, being electrical substations, of course, transmission lines, and then the public, or depending on how that plays out, the public or private water tank could be in coordination with the water provider. Get into more details in a moment. The images we see here were part of the applicant's submittal. They are just sort of typical images, but per the development agreement and the specific plan document, the applicant is prepared to provide the types of elevations that would be compatible with our high desert landscape, and working with staff to ensure that there are compatible colors. We're not going to have giant pink warehouses in Silver Springs. The interior of data centers, cooling systems, and a server farm, right? I don't think there's any surprises here. This isn't the first data center we're going to see here, but they should all look the same on the inside, I suppose. So the site plan here zoomed in includes some conceptual locations for some of those accessory uses we discussed. The water tank being on the northern side of the project area makes sense. We're looking at topography and using gravity to pressurize the system. A buffer area of at least 100 feet. I will point out, development agreement we're working on will have even more precise and larger buffers required. But as a starting point, no development should be occurring for at least 100-foot perimeter. The existing power lines, as Mitch noted, already run through the site, and they are aligned with that above ground utility corridor. There are some potential locations noted for the substations, but of course, those would still be pending future approvals. It's previously stated that the specific plan is not approving development, just development types and development uses. This image is from the Headway Transportation Traffic report that was submitted as part of the specific plan and identifies primary and secondary accesses. The primary access, the second bullet point there, is coming from the south in Carson Street. That stub to the Highway 50 or to Highway 50 was part of NDOT's expansion project. There's a frontage road there. So that stub out is already paved. That is the intended alignment for primary access, both during construction and then in the future for actual project operation. Secondary access, there are some grade challenges there, but there is a connection to Sapphire Road to 95A north of the traffic circle. So that connection would come in from the east. As always, it's important to note, I think especially for the public, that construction costs for extension of utilities, for water rights, for roadways, that is all borne by the developer. County funds are not used for expansion of roadway connections or utility connections. So let's get to the main item here, the actual specific plan document. It is attached to your staff reports. Again, that document is intended to be supplemented by a pending development agreement. The specific plan itself, per Title 15's requirements, includes maps showing topographic constraints, access, proposed access and conceptual elevations, accessory use descriptions, anticipated timelines. I think the timeline is one of the bigger items here. The proposed timeline is on the order of 10 years. The reason being, without the development of the power generation projects, much of that outside the control of Lyon County on public lands to the east and BLM lands associated with Greenlink, without the power generation and then the connection power, the high voltage power lines, there is no data center project. So that's the reason that this timeline is as long as it is. Again, typically a project with only one primary use wouldn't go through this specific plan process. Specific plans, other specific plans in the county would be much more remote. I might characterize them. But because the master plan amendment was for over 160 acres, here we are specifically. Okay, so since the planning commission hearing, I've already touched on this. We are actively working on that development agreement. As a result of the work over the last few months on the development agreement, we do have a few suggested edits to this specific plan document versus when the planning commission would have heard it. So I've got 3 slides here identifying the location in the document of the suggested edits. I can summarize them in this sense that the language that's in the document refers to county code. For instance, one must attain a conditional use permit for substations or the water storage facilities. The suggested edits are recognizing that the development agreement will have more exact language that would supersede standards in Lyon County Code. Again, worked in concert with the district attorney's office. So it's not just planning staff looking through this. So, excuse me. So that's where if we look at the bottom, that green line, if required, I'll just read into the record the proposed edits. If required by Lyon County Code and not specifically addressed in an approved development agreement, developer will apply for a conditional use permit for the accessory uses. The accessory uses will be located to meet conditional use permit findings established in and as a Lyon County Code. So the edit there is and not specifically addressed in an approved development agreement. And the subsequent edits here on pages 12 and 15 follow that same mindset, essentially just clarifying some of the language to recognize that the development agreement might provide a different entitlement path. So here we're talking about power substations. The one edit here recognize that power substation projects located on private land outside the above ground utility corridor delineated in the 2020 master plan would require conditional use permits. The ones inside the corridor would not. And this is the final requested edit. Again, just adding some language about the entitlement path. Instead of being conditional use permits, there is a possibility for them to be administrative design reviews in accordance with the development agreement. So here's the requested action, 460 acres to specific plan. It is notable, subsequent to potential, approval of this specific plan, maybe the development agreement, it would be important to separate those 610 acres that won't be part of this plan. So that could be achieved in a couple different ways, depending on the development plan. But a boundary line adjustment or reversion to acreage and re-subdivision, something along those lines, some other mapping exercise would have to be approved by staff at a later date. We've been through all of this. The findings here are the same as they were for the character district. We're again noting the location of the above ground utility corridor, recognizing the potential benefit to the community. As far as providing an economic base and appropriate business and industry locations. As a result, then staff was able to recommend approval here. It's important to note again that this is not the end of the entitlement process. In the future, when the project would be developed, there would be a process associated with the public utility providers. So for sewer, that would be working with the Silver Springs General Improvement District. That GID is administered by Lyon County Utility District. So I won't speak for Mitch, but I do know that they have been actively working with the utilities department about setting up future annexation for that area into the service area for the county. When it comes to water, water in the area is provided by the Silver Springs Mutual Water Company. Water rights are a little trickier than the septic or sewer connection, because the State Division of Water Resources does have standards on using water rights once they are dedicated to the state. So the timeline here at 10 years, waiting for the development, which is still not, of course, not something that could be entirely predicted at this point. The developer won't be able to work with the state to purchase water rights, dedicate them, and then just have them sit on a shelf for 10 years waiting for the project to actually be constructed. So the development agreement and the specific plan do point out a phasing approach to how water rights would have to be delivered or how water would have to be delivered to the site. Again, the development agreement would have more details, and that will be coming before you for review also. And then, as previously mentioned, appropriate administrative design reviews or even conditional use permits, were they applicable, would still apply, as well as, of course, review by building department and fire departments. That said, again, on November 12th, 2024, the Planning Commission did recommend unanimous approval of the specific plan. Recommended motion is on the screen. I'm available for questions. Of course, Mr. Nelson's still here.
No question.
John?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thanks for the pretty thorough explanation there. I just have one clarification. You just mentioned the phased water rights, and earlier you mentioned a public-private water tank. Can you explain what a public-private water tank and
Great question, sir. I think I'll defer to the applicant because he's been working with them.
I'm gonna back up one step on the conditional use permits and substations, if that's okay. Want to make it clear that we're not trying to circumvent the standards with what we're requesting in development agreement. However, we want to incentivize those substations to be located where they were previously approved. So that's kind of the overall intent there. Is there's an all corridor that's where we should put these, and the incentive would be that development locks that in. So one note there, and then on water. So on the raw water side, the water rights side, what we have to do is basically develop a water right. We have to keep it active, and before we can annex into something, we need to play out the timing to make sure that doesn't lapse. So we've got a number of different charts, and we've met with Silver Springs Water Company to decide that. What that really means, though, is that we would likely not annex until we're pretty sure that the timeframe of the project is concrete. And so that's one on it. As far as the infrastructure itself, we've met with them a number of times, looking at pressure zones and all the important parts of their system. The public-private water tank, what it really means is it's a private water tank. What they'll do is they'll deliver to a meter at the property line that we will receive the water. Then we will likely need booster pumps to pump the water up. That will all be private infrastructure. The tank will be private, and it will be private fire lines out from the tank. So what we're really working on with Silver Springs is to make sure that in the event we're pumping from that tank and there's not enough water, that they're protected, and we've seen that the engineering has proven that's the case. But obviously it's a long time dated process, and so we'll have to reevaluate when we come back into that planning station. But at our current diligence level, we feel confident that we're not going to be a burden on the system, and we'll have adequate water to provide. It'll all be private inside the property.
Okay.
Does that help?
I think so. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, based on the aforementioned findings A through E, I move that Lyon County Board of Commissioners approve the request from Track Capital Management LP for the master plan amendment from rural residential to specific plan on approximately 460 acres of 6 parcels that total approximately 1,070 acres in Silver Springs, APN 015-091-08, 015-111-01, -02 -04-05 and -06. PLZ 2024-066, adding in the proposed edits as presented by Louis Carriola.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Seeing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Louis. Okay, moving on to item 16, agenda requests. Does anyone have any agenda requests?
Madam Chair, I would like to have an agenda item in the not so far future that we can discuss some of our intersection problems. I know there's some in Mason Valley, we've got some in Smith Valley, and just kind of explore our options and where we need to start to get those things fixed and for more safety.
Okay, John?
Yeah, and I know staff is working hard on this, but I'm really concerned with the Aspen Creek issue, the ribs and the capacity issue, and with the what Mr. Foley talked about pending our next fiscal year potential deficit. I'm just really concerned. I mean, we've got average of 200 permits annually in Dayton, and at around $19,000 connection fees and permit fees and water. I mean, that's like nearly $4 million right there. That we could be at a loss. And so I would just like to add an agenda item for hopefully maybe even at the next meeting for an update on what's going on with the ribs. And I know staff's working on it, but if we can just get some regular updates on where we're at with that issue, and I'd like to potentially put together a workshop as well in Dayton with the development community and Lyon County Utilities. If we can put something together on that too, so we can keep this ball moving if we can.
Commissioner Jacobson, do you have anything?
I would agree with Commissioner Casanelli. I think that would be great. In the spirit of transparency and everything else. So that sounds good.
Okay, moving on to commissioner comments. Commissioner Huckabee?
Yeah, had a fun time. I know that Commissioner Jacobson mentioned the Smith Valley 1A basketball state champs. There was a parade in Wellington, downtown, if you want to call it that, from Rosie's down to to the Heyday Inn, and the basketball team was up on a bed with hay bales and their trophy. So it was really kind of neat that they were state champs and that we saw them travel on 208 through the business district. So that's about all I have to say.
Commissioner Casanelli?
I just real quick wanted to mention the 3D grant that I'm working with the Sutro Tunnel reconstruction group, and we're having another, I was looking all over for the date, but we're having another public input meeting coming up in Dayton, and I encourage folks to attend that, but we're working real hard on trying to get that grant funding, and I think it'll be really good for the county as a whole. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Witness Mr. Carriola getting a little bit of a tongue lashing today on some of it after a presentation. While I greatly appreciate varying viewpoints on county business, I want to remind the public that shooting the messenger is wrong. Let me or other county commissioners hear your frustrations. We signed up for this. It's kind of our responsibility. The amount of work that the planning had to go into for just today's meeting and all the diversity of what we covered is really remarkable. And so I don't know what kind of hours Mr. Haskin is holding you to, but if it gets out of hand, let us know, all right? Well, just a great presentations and preparation for the planning end and the zoning. So I want to thank you guys very much. And again, just remind the public that their hard work and their presentations are simply that. We still have the final say. So let us hear your frustrations. And again, I just want to voice of appreciation and thank you for your guys' hard work and the knowledge and research that you've got to do to put these presentations together is remarkable. So thank you. And you do it with a smile on your face. And that's, you know, I don't know, that's pretty good too. So thank you.
Okay, moving on to our final public participation. No action will be taken on any item until it's properly agendized. It's anticipated that public participation will be held at this time, though it may be returned to at any time during the agenda. Citizens wishing to speak during public participation are asked to state their name for the record and will be limited to 3 minutes. The board will conduct, well, we've already done all the agenda items. So is there any final public comment?
Hi, yes, Dan Birchfield. Like to thank Commissioner Casanelli for proposing the agenda item for talking about the reclaimed water disposal issue. It's still definitely an ongoing issue, and there's a lot of people in the development community that are worried that things will just kind of get pushed aside and drawn out for longer than it needs to if we don't make it a priority and then have that open conversations about it. And I love the idea of a workshop. I'd love to help participate in that. I'm working with Mr. Briquetta on a few things, including writing the wastewater or reclaimed water master plan and updates on that. So hopefully we can get things resolved, and he's been really helpful over the last few weeks in trying to push that forward. So I think we're on the right track. I just want to make sure that you know, we hold everybody accountable to try to get this done as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Did you write your name?
I did, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
My name is Frank Bouchard, and I've been a resident of Lyon County for 14 years. I'm also in the building trade, and I have actually a two-part request from the county commissioners, if at all possible. One is for you to put on your agenda as soon as possible, or at least talk about it, giving overtime to the building staff, building department staff. 3 weeks, well, I'd say about 3 months ago, we were probably out of 4-week period of time for building permits. About a month ago, we were 6 to 8 weeks. Today, we could be 4 months or longer. And partly that was due to the amount of growth that's happening in Dayton, where the actual plans examiner had to go a couple of weeks per week to actually do some inspections, because Gene, who's fantastic, is overwhelmed with the amount of growth. Now we've lost Gail due to an accident that you're probably aware of. Now we're down to one inspector and one plans examiner, and all they're doing right now at this time is permits. So nobody's really looking at the plan examining. And with the amount of growth that we're talking about, I'm hoping to get a little bit proactive. I understand that we do have some advertisement for a new inspector, but instead of maybe just looking for one, two, because as it was, we were getting behind with just the two inspectors. So I'm hoping that you look at this as soon as possible, because there's a lot of people out there that are waiting for permits. And when the plans examiner is spending 2 days a week in Mason, Yerington, and in Smith Valley, and 3 days in Silver Springs, that leaves no time. So I think that's an urgent matter before it turns into an emergency. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more public comment? Seeing none, it's 12:01 and this meeting is adjourned and we will have a closed session.